Hey guys, welcome back to Builder Funnel Radio. This is episode 89 with Ken Parsons. And in this conversation, we dig into Ken's background a little bit at the beginning, but stick with us because he is now franchising out his business. And I think he's got some good takeaways, some good lessons in here about how you can do that in your business. So I know a lot of you listening are builders or remodelers. He is specifically gutters, but there are a lot of great business lessons and strategies that you guys can use from this conversation and apply it to your own business. So stay tuned for episode 89 with Ken Parsons. Hey, Ken, glad to have you on the show today.
Glad to be here, Spencer.
Yeah, I'm excited for the conversation. We're going to dig into a number of things, but I always like to kind of start off with, how did you get into the construction space? We all find our way into this industry, through a variety of paths, but how'd you get into it?
Well, probably wasn't by choice in the beginning. Probably somewhere around 8 or 9 years old. My dad had, recruited me to go out, and, I always grew up working on going out with Dad on his work truck whenever I wasn't going to school, and being his little helper. Getting him tools and helping him organize his box truck and try and make heads or tails of things and organize it for him. And then probably as I got older, I started getting into some landscaping and things of that nature that I started doing, and went to school to be a teacher. And I did that for a few years. And then after about my third year teaching, I had a guy approach me and ask me if I wanted to do gutters, and I was like, nah, I wasn't really interested in going into construction. I already, been there, done that with my dad, kind of thing, So basically, I went, school ended and summer was here, and I ended up finding myself in construction working with my uncle down in Long Island framing houses, and this guy approached me about doing gutters again, and I was commuting from Dutchess County, New York, 2.5 hours one way, just to get to Long Island to frame in the summer heat. So I was like, yeah, maybe gutters will be a little bit better. At least
that sounds pretty nice.
To home. Certainly a lot lighter than carrying LVLs. So yeah, I made that switch, and I just loved it. I did that the whole summer, and I loved it so much I pretty much didn't go back to my teaching job. I literally took my degree and threw it in the gutter from then on. It was it. That was it. And nice. I worked for a company for about, 3 or 4 months. And then I pretty much opened up my own business the following year. That was February 1999. So over 21 years ago.
Very cool. Gotcha. So you kind of fell into it because it sounded better than framing, but then you're like, hey, I think I can make my own go of this. And so once you got into doing gutters for yourself, like, how did the business evolve from there? Did you stick with gutters right from the start, or do you start to deviate from that?
I stuck with gutters pretty much right from the start, and for the first 3.5 years, it was just me. It was me. I was an owner, installer, operator. When I had bigger jobs, I would, pull some friends of mine in, so I was the typical, self-employed, wearing all the hats kind of guy, and just toughing it. I didn't have any business experience or anything like that. I just knew how to work hard. And back then, you put an ad in the telephone book and your phone would ring. It was
magic, right?
It was a lot simpler than it is today, right? So, but about 3.5 years into it, I started, seeing that there was more opportunity for expansion and possibly even growing to more than just me on a truck. And my brother was in between jobs, and he was part of the marketing.com.bomb thing. And he was a graphic designer and did marketing and all that kind of stuff. And I said, hey, it'll be like being on the truck with Dad when we were kids and doing chores around the house. Why don't you come over here and, we'll see what we can do. And, I wasn't thinking, we would be partners at that point. I was just going to help him out until he got his next job. And, he came on, and my brother was always good. He was always creative at figuring out how to not do the actual work. but I won't go too much detail because he's not here to defend himself. You'll
Fair
have to
enough,
have him
yeah.
on another time. But anyway, he said, Ken, do you have a website? And I said, no, I don't have a website. So in 2001, it was 2002, around there, I had a website. He built it from scratch, and he ended up doing a lot more marketing things. And really, Ryan has our relationship is great because I'm more of a visionary by nature, and he's an implementer. So he's good at like taking the ideas that I have and then giving them legs to walk. He's really good with the details. And
Perfect combination right there. You know, you need
uh,
those. That's the perfect combo right there. You need
yeah.
those two skill sets within the business. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was like how it started. That's when things started to really evolve, and he started to see the opportunity and started taking things seriously. And then he put some skin in the game, and pretty much to make a long story short, Ryan and I became partners, and that was probably around 2003-ish, somewhere in there.
Very cool. Yeah. And then I know, you and I were kind of talking before the recording, but you guys started to do other things than just gutters, but then I know you made your way back to just gutters. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit from like a system standpoint and a marketing standpoint, because that's where I really want to get into all this, is kind of systematizing the business. But why'd you evolve, but then why'd you come back?
Well, that's a great question. It's tempting, right? It's tempting. The temptation was in front of us all the time. We're doing all this work, and people are saying, do you guys do anything else besides gutters? And we started saying, even some of our people that we knew in business said, why aren't you guys doing fascia board? I mean, we used to sub even that out. We wouldn't touch anything except unless it was running out of a seamless gutter machine. And we just started saying, you know what, we're passing up a lot of money here. And by around 2004, 5, the construction boom hit, and the temptation was too great. And we just ended up doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And by then, Ryan and I still were working on developing our business acumen, as we would say. Wasn't quite there yet, especially to take on what we were about to go into. It started going into fascia board and then soffit, and then before you know it, we're siding houses and replacing windows and doing roofing, and then that evolved into us framing houses and doing bathroom remodels and bath and kitchens, and then we even got a set crew going. We were setting modular houses. I mean, it was crazy, and it was just like money was going out and coming in, and we were up to maybe 35, 40 employees at one point. And then the 2007 and a half, I think the writing was on the wall, and we just knew that, man, something has changed. The economy is not what it was, and we had discontinued doing the construction, and we just went back to just focusing on the gutters, and basically went through a whole even rebranding. We were Waterfall seamless gutters when I first started, and then we had a competition thing with a product called the Waterfall gutter guard system. Maybe you've heard of that. It was a plastic kind of gutter guard system that was popular back then. I don't even know if it still exists. So we changed the name from that because they didn't like that we were had the same name as them, even though we weren't really competing. And we opened up as Water Flow Gutter Solutions. And we thought, wow, this is a great name. We got the seamless out of there. We have these solutions now. And then when that whole construction debacle happened, and we got rid of the construction stuff, we went through this whole rebranding thing with Cumulus Media to do a radio ad. And they got us, we had this private little session with the speaker who was at this forum that we were at. And we basically started to kind of reinvent ourselves. And, we just do gutters. That's all we want to do. We don't want to do any other construction. We learned our lesson. And, out of that whole brainstorm, we're brothers, we're family. We just want to do gutters. And the tagline, the brothers that just do gutters, evolved out of that meeting. And what we found shortly as we started to do the radio ad and we had the little catchy song and everything, that people were calling and we were answering the phone, Water Flow Gutters, how may I help you? And people say, well, I'm looking for Gutter Brothers or the Brothers Gutters or the brothers that just do gutters or who do gutters or whatever they would say. And we were just like, okay, now we got another problem here. What are we going to do? And the lawyer just said, hey, just change it to the doing business as the brothers just do gutters. And then a couple years later, we made that the official name by popular demand by our own customers. Our tagline became the name of the company and what it is today. So that hopefully that gives you kind of a little bit of an idea of the struggle that we went through during that time, but we made it through.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because, from a marketing perspective, when you start getting all these opportunities, you're like, oh, great. But then you become known for less and less because you just do everything. And so
Right.
when you guys made the switch back to just focus on gutters, like you guys are probably the ones that are known for that. And there's not, it's tough to compete with you because you start to carve out that niche and people know you from that perspective. But I'm curious to hear from your perspective, what did that do when you made that switch and that tagline became the company name? Did you notice that like things got easier from a marketing perspective or just overall systems? Like what happened?
Absolutely. It was a huge difference. As a matter of fact, our whole company went through a huge transformation. We went from being a gutter company that was probably 60-70% working for contractors and all kinds of different builders and things of that nature to doing a total flip-flop. And that rebranding really led us down into more of a residential company and doing residential homes and stuff, which was perfect timing for us, especially going into what we know today as the Great Recession, because homeowners were fixing up their investment and they pay half down or and upon completion where you're not chasing after money and stuff. So the rebranding to the brothers that just do gutters, it doesn't take a lot of mental real estate for people to remember it because our name says it all. So I really feel that our marketing dollars, when it comes to having to spend money on marketing, even to today, we don't have to spend as much as, like my old company would have to. Like Waterfall Seamless Gutters is not very memorable. And the name speaks, it's warm, it's friendly, it's family. There's a lot of things that encompass and core values that you get out of that is pretty powerful as far as marketing is concerned. So it's been the best thing that we ever did.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good to hear. And I know since then you guys have actually started to franchise it out. But let's dig into the systems. Like, how do you get to that point? What do you really need to do within that first location, that first business, to be able to get to a point to do that from a system standpoint?
Well, the first thing that you have to do is you have to change and adapt your mindset of, I had to, as the leader of a company, and Ryan had to do so much research and so much growing and internal changes that we needed to do to change our mindset about business and what we wanted from it. Is it expand with a corporate model or is it expand through a business strategy like franchising? And we just really felt as we started going down the path of the discovery of learning about systems, and there's tons of books out there about it, and probably many people on your podcast have heard of the E-Myth Revisited. Was like one of the first ones. Oh man, this is it. This is the golden ticket. This is exactly what we were trying to do here. And it also, it's, what is it that you want out of your business too? Do you want to stay as a self-employed person that wears all the hats, which is fine. People can make money doing that. And as long as you're happy doing that, keep on doing it. But Ryan and I are builders. We always have been since we were little kids, whether it was building sandcastles on the beach or playing sports or whatever. I always wanted to build it bigger, and he always wanted to build it really nice with all these details. And that's the same kind of partnership that we have in this business. And that's why franchising was very attractive to us, because when you take those systems and you create them for every little thing in your company, so that when you hire people, it creates a great culture and working environment of learning and being able to hit their personal goals as well. And then you're able to transfer that feeling and experience onto your clients. Man, there's nothing more powerful than that. So, that's really something that we really had to learn, and it took a lot of time. And I would say that journey started back when we were going through that struggle of trying to define who we are and what we wanted to be in business back in 2007, 2008. We literally spent probably at least a good part of a decade working on systems and fine-tuning things, all the way till about 2015. Obviously, we're still fine-tuning things even today and making them better. But that's when we actually launched as an official franchise and had all of our, ducks in a row for that to happen. So hopefully that answer gives you a little bit of insight on that.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm curious too, just because I think a lot of people that get into business for themselves, a lot of times they start on the tools or in the actual trade of the business. And then as you grow, you start to realize, oh, now I'm the business owner and I'm hiring people, and, there's that natural evolution. So, how do you get to that point where you actually remove yourself out of the operation of the business? I know logistically, we always talk about, you find somebody for this role and this role, but there's obviously more to it, or there would be more people that have jumped out of the business and have it running and operating without them, assuming that's what they want to do, which is kind of what you were saying too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you need a coach. You really need somebody that can coach you through it to keep you accountable to the working on your business to where it is that you want to go. And you really have to define that for yourself. And it's different for every individual. So you really have to define, what is it that I want out of this business, and how do I envision my business, and what does it look like a year from now, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now? What does my business look like? And then you have to put together a plan, and you got to stay on task with that plan, whether it's, developing a 90-day plan where you have big rocks within that plan that you're working on as you're wearing the tool belt, because, you just don't take off the tool belt and then you're all of a sudden you're don't have to do these things anymore. But it certainly is a race to replace. And I really believe a great book too that helps with this is just hiring talent. You hire cheap, you're going to get cheap. If you hire people with talent, and specifically talent, not just with the hard skills, but with the soft skills too, and they have leadership ability, then you can start having what we call as the race to replace in our business. And that's something that you have to be comfortable too, of being able to let things go. If I was still wearing all the hats in my business, I'd still be in the same place right now and not have multiple locations and, trucks everywhere. But you have to start somewhere. And I think in our business, the best place to start is with your organizational chart, getting a back office admin to do that stuff, because typically guys who are wearing the tool belt, like I started out, I don't know anything about QuickBooks, and I don't want to know anything about it, but I want to hire that done with somebody who, when they open up those spreadsheets and everything, their eyes light up and they're passionate about it and they love it. And they're able to give me a report that I can read and, Ken's, simplify it for me so that I can understand what is it that I need to do to make certain things happen, whether it be in the field or whether it be in sales or marketing decisions, and that person there. So I really think that that's an important step. But I also think that as you evolve too, is that you need somebody to keep you accountable to sticking to those goals, and having a business coach that has the experience of taking business owners from being an owner solar operator to having leadership and developing infrastructure and systems within your organization is really key and pivotal for somebody who doesn't want to wear the tool belt long term.
That makes sense. Yeah. And I think, really starting with, what do you want out of the business, I think is an important one. But then I love that, the answer was getting a coach, because I think a lot of times we think that we have to know everything because we're in the, the top spot, or, whatever it may be. But really, if you're not, learning and growing and, finding somebody that can kind of show you the path, then it tends to not happen, or it just takes a lot longer because you have to figure a lot of stuff out yourself.
Well, that's if I knew what I knew now. Oh man, back when I started, when I was 23, 24 years old. Oh my gosh.
It'd go a lot faster, right?
Oh, it'd be a lot faster. And the way that you go fast in business is it really comes to hiring people that are passionate about sales. I could go out and sell stuff all day long, but if I have the tool belt on and I have to go produce the work, I have to sell the work, there's no way. I am not going to be able to have the time to follow up on those leads. I'm just an order taker. I'm doing an estimate for somebody, and then boom, once that's done, I'm waiting for the next lead to come in, and I'll go do it in between jobs or whatever, however guys do it. And I did that. I did it. It's a rat race, and I never had time to follow up, and that's where the gold is. 20% of the people are going to probably sign with you just because they got a referral or something like that, or, and 20% are probably not going to go with you because they're going to go with somebody else. And so you're fighting over that 60%. And if you're wearing all these hats in your business, that 30%, because you want to be closing somewhere around 50%, you can't do it as an owner. You can't. Somebody who's passionate about sales and that's all they're focused on, they're going to outsell an owner all day long if you have the right guy. So, and that goes for everything. Putting off the tool belt is really the first step. The next step is really being good at recruiting, and not only always be doing it, but budgeting for it and putting time every week to be building that bench, building a bench of resumes that you can pull from. That way, if a guy leaves, that's a good guy. I always hear this all the time. That's, man, I wish I could get another guy like Jim, or if I could just clone that guy or myself, I hear that all the time. And the problem is that people are not spending time and spending money on recruiting each week because they're wearing too many hats and they don't have the time to do it. And recruiting, and then that leads to interviewing, and interviewing leads to people waiting there for you to say, hey, I'm ready for you. We just are expanding to a new truck or a new job. And same with any kind of department within your business as it continues to grow. I'm always growing it so that the deeper I go in each department, whether it's marketing, whether it's the back office, whether it's the field or sales, I'm always building a bench. I'm always doing those things. And pretty soon as those departments grow, and I have leaders in those departments that are overseeing that, they're going to share the insomnia and they're going to be the ones who are recruiting and interviewing those people. And that's how it evolves. And that's how it's evolved for us. And we're teaching not just our franchisees, but, Ryan and I talk to a lot of people about business because we love it so much. And we're teaching them the same principles. It's nothing that we've invented or, come up with. It's just all stuff that we've learned from other successful business owners. And that's why getting a coach, I think, is super important, and who you associate with.
Yeah. And so I want to learn a little bit more from you on the recruiting aspect. How much time should you be thinking about dedicating towards building the bench? And just, you said weekly, but I'm just trying to get a sense of how much time were you spending, doing that, a few years ago, and then today, what does that look like?
If you ever saw Glenn Ross, he always says, always be closing. Well, we take that and we say, always be recruiting. That's something that we do in our organization. And ever since I started, when I was a little kid, I was always recruiting. When I was the captain of the dodgeball game that was happening in the backyard with the kids at the neighborhood, I was already looking out, who am I recruiting to be on my team so we could win? Because that's what it's all about. It's all about winning and putting the winning team out on the field. And I want to have my A players out there all the time. So, to simplify it more, for somebody who's just starting to go down the path of wanting to do this, dedicate a couple hours a week. Mark it off on your calendar. That's really practical. Maybe it's between 3 and 5 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon or whenever you think that you can break away, and you just guard that time, and you go through those resumes that are coming in, you make those contacts, you book. When you book interviews, book them, especially for the field, because a lot of times people, I tried recruiting people and half the people don't even show up. So book those in 15-minute intervals. So what if they're sitting there waiting if you're on an interview? But get yourself in the habit of being able to get good at it too. And you know what? If a guy isn't even qualified at it, have him in anyway, because it's good practice for you. We have to get good at recruiting and interviewing if we're going to be able to do it, and we have to make time for it. We have to have a budget for it. And as that continues to evolve and you start getting it going, obviously, as you replace yourself in different avenues of your business, you're going to have people who are talented and in different aspects of your business that'll be able to help with that as well.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's really good practical advice, and it does, just takes time, and so if you wait until you need somebody, then you're behind, already, so if you're always interviewing and you always have that just as a part of your regular ongoing system, then you'll have a network of people. Even if you find the right person, you're not in a position to hire them. You can say, hey, you know what? We're hoping to be able to hire you within the next 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is. But then you're just having an open conversation with them. They know that you're not stringing them along, but you say, hey, we're interested, but we just can't hire you. So I think that's great advice, to just have it part of that regular cadence, that regular rhythm. The other position that I'm interested to hear your perspective on is just hiring for that sales spot. Because I think a lot of owners tend to, they're either the highest producing salesperson, or they have trouble finding somebody actually to replace themselves, because it does require some unique skill sets. They're obviously not, I don't know, I guess impossible to find. But what have you found that's been helpful in trying to find good salespeople and train them for that role?
Well, I've done the profiling, the personality profiling tests, and we've put that to the test since, I don't know, probably the mid 2000s. We were doing stuff like that. And, what I've really come to find out with people is that, if they have a hunger and a passion about it, and I really feel that you want to hire somebody that has sales experience. Somebody that has sales experience is going to come into an interview, and you're going to ask them a question like, well, tell me what does follow-up look like to you? Or, what does a cold call look like to you? And how are you going to generate for the company? Even though we're going to be providing you leads, and, if their eyes light up and they're saying, well, I do this, 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 and this, and this is how I track it, and this is what I've done at this company over here, and, cold calling is no problem for me. And they just share their experience, and you could tell that there's a hunger and passion about that like they love it. They love what they do. They love to sell. That's really, I think, one of the first qualities, I think, when you're hiring for any position, is what kind of level of enthusiasm and passion do they have about the job that you're looking for them to hire. So that's one of the qualities that we use. We have a very short sales cycle in with a gutter estimate.
Sure.
Like average is like 40 minutes, right? Which can be much different than other trades like remodeling and stuff. Could be, they could be going back 2 or 3 times before they close the deal. So, we need to have somebody that is going to be able to bond and rapport with that homeowner, but also not be afraid to close the deal and get it done. Because in our business, people are calling because they have a problem, and that's why they're calling us. They want to make a decision. They're not just waking up today and saying, you know what, I think I'm going to get new gutters. People do that when they want to remodel a bathroom or a kitchen, but gutters, they're calling us because I need somebody that is energetic and a bond and rapport, but still be able to come across as being able to show that we're giving them a solution that is good for their home and that makes sense. Those are some of the qualities that we're looking for. I don't want to, one of the things that a lot of guys will do is in business that I notice is that you want to hire people who are passionate professionals in what they do, because they're going to be up and running a lot faster than somebody that you have to train everything from scratch. A lot of guys, and I've even made this mistake in the past of putting the wrong person in the wrong role. And that's just going to cost you a lot of time and training and money. And then before you know it, 3-4 months or maybe 6 months down the road, sometimes we tolerate people for way too long in business and they really weren't the right fit. So you want to make sure that you're making sure in your process that they are the right fit. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, you got to know the role that you're hiring for, but then you're looking for some of those key elements. Like you said, you can kind of see that they have knowledge about the process or how they answer those interview questions or their excitement and passion for it. And yeah, I feel like if you can start popping yourself out of these roles, you start to unstick yourself, and that's really when you can start to do something like franchise, if that's what you want to do. But even if you don't, it gives you that ability to just be working, like you said at the top of the interview, on the business and not being stuck in it. You can look for those micro improvements, along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you said earlier too about people getting into business, I think one of the biggest reasons why everyone gets into business is because they want to make money, but they also want to have time. And, a lot of guys can't seem to have both, especially when everything relies on you. You certainly don't have a lot of time, especially when your phone's ringing off the hook all the time. When it's family time, when it's dinner time, when it's, you want to go out and do whatever with the guys or vacation or whatever, so that's why I think, and that's what I wanted. I started thinking about my business differently because I was like, man, I just can't see. I like hanging gutter. I don't, I like it. I'm good at it. But you know what? I've done, I did it for 10 years installed out in the field. And it's like, all right, I'm only getting older and fatter. I better figure this out because there's no way that I'm going to keep producing like this. My income was going to go up and then all of a sudden it's going to start going down. And you know what? I don't have time. My kids are starting to get older and stuff and I don't have my time. So, for me, I just knew that I needed to redefine how it was that I approached business as well.
Yeah, I love that. We talk a lot about that here. And I just talk about in terms of the concept of retirement too. Like
Right.
The whole reason everyone wants to get there is just because they want to spend time on other things. And so I feel like it's always this balance of time freedom and money freedom. The money to do the things you want to do or have experiences or things or whatever, your passions are, but then you need the time to do those things too. And so to your point, systematizing the business in as many areas as you can, and ideally all of them, gives you that time freedom, and more than likely it also the money freedom comes along with it because you've figured out the numbers and how everything works. So Ken, I got one last segment of the show for us, but before I get to that, how can people connect with you or learn more about what you're up to and learn about the franchise if that's something they're interested in, or maybe just ask you business questions? What's the best way to connect with you?
Oh, well, there's a couple great ways to connect. As far as informational purposes, brothersfranchise.com is a great resource for people. There's a lot of testimonials and podcasts and content on there that people can look at. Also, my Instagram, I post a lot of stuff on Instagram, a lot of, just anything that has to do with business. Ryan and I are constantly doing podcasts and putting out content out there to help people and to help the industry. So connecting me on Instagram and Facebook, we're doing a lot there too as well. And directly calling me. I'm the point of contact for business development on the franchise side of things. So calling me, emailing me is always good. So yeah, I directly will be able to talk with people directly about any of those types of things.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I'll grab that info from you so we can link it up in the show notes for everybody. So let's head into our last segment. We call it the Fast Five. So I'm going to hit you with 5 rapid fire questions and just say whatever comes to mind. But the first question is, what is your favorite business book and why?
Hmm. Wow. Right now, I would say the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. I've been just eating that one for the last couple weeks. And, especially at times like this that we're going through, it's just, it just fires you up and says, you know what, this is the type of situation where I got to raise my activity level to 10 times what I've been doing. Maybe even 20 times because of what we're going through right now. And so I really feel that that's a great book, because really, if you want to be successful, that's what really it takes, is activity equals results. And that leads to success. And typically success can also lead to happiness as well, when you're doing the thing that you're passionate about. So
Yeah, that's a great one. Really a good one for kind of expanding your mind on what's possible or what you're capable of. But next question is, who is the most inspirational person in your life?
I don't know. I'd have to say, oh man, that is a tough one. Can we come back to that one?
Sure, we'll come back to it. Yeah.
Stumped me on that one.
All right, next one is.
Well, it's kind of a tough question, because if anybody listens to this thing that I know, you're like, I thought I was.
Yeah. Well, we could just say one of the top. Yeah.
One of the top. There we go. I would say, one of the people I never met him, but his philosophy on business has been very inspirational, and probably have had the biggest impact on me is probably Robert Kiyosaki. So I would say that, as far as from a business standpoint, he's been most influential.
Cool. Yeah. I remember first reading, Rich Dad Poor Dad, a decade ago or whatever it is, and yeah, it just total mind shift. So I totally get that. All right, next question might be a little easier for you, but if you could have one superpower, what would that be?
Oh, how about to be all-knowing?
All-knowing. That's a good one. I like that one. All right. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Never give up.
I like it. Cool. All right. Last question is, if you could leave our listeners with one piece of advice, what would that be?
Never give up.
I like it.
Never give up. That's my advice. It's, you can create your own destiny, and, we're all going to face obstacles. We're facing a big obstacle right now, all of us worldwide. And you know what? We can't give up. We got to keep pushing forward. And that's what gets us to the other side of anything, especially a thing like we're all going through right now. It certainly has done well for us in business as well, having that kind of mentality that, you know what, you just can't stop pushing. It doesn't matter what obstacle. I'm going to figure out a way over it, around it, through it, under it. And that's pretty much what I would advise to anybody, is to keep pushing forward.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome advice. And Ken, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Spencer.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Ken. Again, I know you're on the go, you're doing other things while you're listening to this, so I like to pull out some good takeaways for you. And in reflecting back on the conversation, there's really a big takeaway that comes to mind, and that is, first, look at all the hats that you're wearing in your business. So you're operating in different roles, you're probably executing on a variety of roles. So in order to start replacing yourself, there's really 2 big things that you need to work on. One is building that bench that Ken talked about. So always hiring, always recruiting, looking for the right person for those different hats. So it could be a sales hat, an operations hat, a marketing hat, an admin hat. So you're trying to remove yourself from that role. You have to find the right people. So carve out some time, like Ken said, and start looking for those people. The second part is documenting everything that role requires, so that you can start to train that person and that they know how all those activities should be executed. So if it's somebody in sales, hey, this is what follow-up looks like for every lead. Hey, this is what follow-up looks like after every meeting. And if you start to just do this one thing of identifying the hats you're wearing and then breaking it down to documenting the things that you do and looking for the right person to replace yourself, you'll start to make rapid progress in systematizing your business, like Ken has and what he's done with the franchising. So hopefully you guys got a lot out of this episode. Again, it's always a good refresher to think about, the E-Myth and some of those core principles in terms of systematizing the business, removing yourself from the operations so that you can work on the business and move the business forward. Thanks again for listening, guys, and we'll see you next time on Builder Funnel Radio.